All right, everybody. It looks like we have blast off. Are you ready to blast off there, Hat Man?
Oh man, I'm blasting.
You. Oh man, let's get this show on the road then, huh? I'll come and help you share it out. All right, everybody. Thank you again for watching and tuning in. And let's see, what was I going to do? I was going to announce something, and we got all screwed up on the sound. And Windows Update changed the sound settings. That's what I figured out. It's my excuse, Mark. I'm sticking to it, damn it. So.
Are we on?
Yeah, you're on.
Oh, hello. I've been dozing. I hope everybody likes my hat. I haven't worn a hat for one of these podcasts yet. It may look similar to a Trump MAGA hat, except for it's white, but it's red, white, and blue, which I know not too many Democrats, except those over maybe 60 years old, really get into. But this is my 4th of July hat, 1776. And we are celebrating this weekend, aren't we?
What are you, an Alex Jones supporter? No, Alex Jones is the only one that talks about 1776.
Oh, well, I like to talk about 1776. It was one of the greatest years in human history. So, anyway, we did our last show about whether or not America has ended. And in my opinion, we're nowhere near the America that our founders envisioned and that is represented in our founding documents and all the principles, the timeless principles they put forth for us. And that's why we are dividing. No, we're not dividing. We're divided. And that's why we are going into massive, massive debts, and we are involving ourselves in wars. We are looked at as a criminal by some nations on our planet, and you can't blame them. For those of you who are phony, conservative, patriotic, whatever, it is what it is. We've been responsible for killing a lot of innocent people overseas, and there's no getting around that. And if a foreign nation had done that to us, had not even without even declaring war, had sent bombs onto our soil, soldiers onto our soil, had used drones to bomb hospitals and wedding receptions and generally neighborhoods in different nations around the world, we probably wouldn't be very happy. We would probably, God, maybe then we would declare war. Of course, these nations can't really declare war on us because we are technologically so superior. And we got that way by virtue of a free market system and liberty that built up a ton of wealth for a lot of years that we are frittering away now. But that's okay. That's okay. Every nation has a time, it seems, throughout history where they start to fail. And there's a progression to it that is also timeless, and we've become socialist, lazy, a nation that is willing to finance people sitting on their ass all day, while we have to hire people coming over our border who, while technically, well, not technically, they're not citizens. Our nation would crumble today if all of those people left or just quit working. And that's a fact, Jack. So anyway, I wanted to mention, before we are off and running here, that if you're out somewhere in a social setting, or even at this gentleman's home, if you're around Bill Cosby and he fixes you a drink or buys you one, don't drink it. Really, don't drink it. He's probably going to spike it so that he can take advantage of you, and he's out. He's available for all you girls out there that want a guy like that. You know, O.J. Simpson's probably still popular. We have a lot of idiots out there who tend towards the celebrity, no matter how murderous or criminal they are. You know, it's a fact that a lot of criminals get a lot of mail while they're in jail. I don't know what that's all about. It's kind of like when my servers in my restaurants, they would hang out in the kitchen flirting with the cooks. My cooks, who generally couldn't wait to get off work so they could get drunk or do some drugs, and generally were going nowhere in life, but they seemed to want to flirt with them. I'm like, what are you girls doing? This is what you want out of life? Well, it is what it is. It's a free country. Anyway, I also want to wish Mr. Thomas Gibson, his children call him Hoot, down in Dallas, Texas. I'm sure he's out having a birthday party right now at some wild and crazy restaurant. I believe he turned 87 today. He is the father of one of my best friends down there in Dallas. We went to high school together in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. So happy birthday, Tom. I hope you're having a great night. Anyway, here it is, the 4th of July weekend. By the way, I talk here a lot, and sometimes I quit speaking for a second or two, sometimes 3 seconds as I collect a thought, or hell, sometimes I'm having one of them senior moments. And I just want you to know it's not always easy to sit here and sit here and espouse my views and have nobody else to bounce them off of. So again, if you'd like to call, I'm at 515-630-6262. We are building the show. We are now on YouTube Live. We are on Facebook Live. We hope to continue to bring in guests, and I'm hoping to hopefully have a sidekick of sorts sometime. That would be a lot more fun, and maybe sometimes I'd get challenged on a few things, and we could go round and round about it. But the bottom line is, you know, the reason I started doing this is for a long time I always thought I would run for political office, and I don't know that that's ever going to happen now. But I am going to sometime this summer I'm going to lay out how I would run and what I would stand for, and we're going to do a little bit about that. What I would stand for, what I would support, what I would do if I were in the Congress of the United States. And I can guarantee you, it's completely different than every single member of that prestigious body. So here we are, marking the 4th of July, and yet we have ripped up our Constitution. We have basically ignored everything our founders gave us. But by golly, we're going to have carnivals and parades and hot dogs, and we're going to grill all weekend. We're gonna drink some cold ones. Well, I'm going to drink some cold ones. We're going to have a good time all over America and act like we're really on it. We're patriotic, and we have no idea what we're really celebrating because I hate to be the bearer of bad news. We are going in the wrong direction. I got something today that, well, it appeared on Facebook as I opened up Facebook, and I hate being on Facebook. I really do. But if you're going to communicate with a lot of people, you kind of got to be on Facebook, at least at this point. Hopefully that'll change one day, because no rational person wants Mark Zuckerberg to make any more money. He is someone who is connected. He's part of the oligopoly of fascism that is trying to run our country, take over our liberty, and become our masters. And that's really what it comes down to. And they're doing it. They're doing a great job of it. Anyway, this popped up over and over again today. I wasn't the only one that saw it. It's a new thing. Obviously, I must have been in touch with the Ku Klux Klan or something, which I think still does exist. I'm kidding there. I wasn't getting in touch with the KKK. I don't know anything about the KKK anymore. But it does exist. And again, by the way, was always Democrats group. It was a Democratic group. It was the Democrat Party's contribution to American culture. As we know so much about the Democrat Party and its anti-Americanism, which it still represents to this day. Anyway, this is what popped up. This is beautiful. Mark, you may have been exposed to harmful extremist content recently. Oh no. I don't even know what that is, but Facebook has decided that something's come across my feed or something, and I have been exposed to something harmful and extremist. Then it said, violent groups try to manipulate your anger and disappointment. You can take action now to protect yourself and others. Get support from experts. Spot the signs, understand the dangers of extremism, and hear from people who escaped violent groups. I was dumbfounded. I shouldn't be at this point, but I was dumbfounded to have this pop up. They should actually, then, these Facebook fact checker type people, they should actually include here what it was that I saw that was dangerous to myself, to Facebook, to the Republic. I don't know, but something dangerous. They should kind of let me know what that was so I can stay away from it, so I can go around it, so I can steer clear. So I'm just wondering, now I'm going to guess whatever it was I read or I posted or that I might have seen, I'm going to guess it was something that they would call right-wing activism, because we have had riots, we've had murders, we've had looting, we've had burning down cities, we've had large groups of people blocking public streets and highways, challenging city council meetings in a way where they've had to shut down the meetings, stopping cars randomly, stopping elderly from walking across a street. Now, we've seen that all over Facebook for well over a year. But I don't think that's what they're trying to keep me away from. I think that they're worried that a so-called right-wing group is infecting my innocent mind and could make me go out and what would they make me do? I'm not aware of what the so-called right-wing groups are doing. You know, if you're right-wing, if you get on the websites of the Oath Takers and the Proud Boys, and from what I understand, these are conservative groups that make their views very well known. It's kind of weird. It's like everything they stand for is patriotic. So that tells you something. They're the bad guys. They're the bad guys. I don't know anybody in those groups. I don't know what group I came across that caused this warning, but they're the bad guys. But the people that are actually trying to burn down America, defacing statues. There was a picture today I saw. Some young woman was spray painting a statue of a guy who was actually an abolitionist. Yeah, she was. They'll wreck any statue. They're just trying to destroy America. They're trying to destroy our founding, our history, our culture. And but that's okay. That's all right. That's all right. Here on this 4th of July, that's what America is now. America has ended. The America that we were supposed to be. There's remnants of it out there. You can find it in some small cities across the country. Some states have some decent representation of real America. But the vast majority of the population in this country that lives in our urban centers, which unfortunately have enormous political clout because of the voting out of these urban areas. They are destroying our country, and every one of those areas is run by Democrats. So anyway, what do I have here? Well, if we're ever going to change anything, I'll just mention this before in a little while we'll get to those randy Republicans. The only way to change things is through a constitutional Congress, which I'm all for. A convention of the states which if we called for that and we actually had it, and I don't think it's going to happen, it would become sidelined, ruined. It would be warped by the left-wing press, by all the leftists. I think it would devolve into a massive riot and possibly shootouts. Maybe we should have one. Now Facebook's really going to be on me. Or amendments, to the Constitution to modify, to delete, or to add something, but we're sure not going to do that because that takes a little over, I believe, 2/3 of the country to agree to amend the Constitution, and we're not going to come to an agreement on anything in this country. Or we can utilize to the best of our abilities the Second Amendment and shoot our way out of this thing. I'm going to be in trouble with Facebook again. Got to be careful about speaking my heart, my truth. I need to self-censor a little better because Facebook may just go ahead and censor me or send me to a psychiatrist, which I think is what they were trying to do today. Or we can have secession, and I'm not against that one either, because as much as a lot of people that I like and read who are adamant against secession, I understand it. I hate the thought of America not being any more the 50 states and having a flag with the stripes and the stars and everything else. But I'm sorry, I don't want to be in the same country with millions of people that are here that do violently want to overthrow my country and everything it's supposed to stand for. I don't want to be in their nation. I don't want to be a part of their lives. I don't want my children or my grandchildren to be a part of them. And I'm sorry for a lot of those people because they're misguided, or they are just naive. They are uneducated. Many of them are overeducated. They go to these colleges and they get all this education, and then they try to figure out, well, God, there's a problem. I think there's a problem there. Beyond the fact that government probably created it, I'm going to join government to fix these problems because I'm a good guy. And they just make it worse. Before we, I'm probably about 20 minutes to getting to the Republicans. By the way, I'm a registered Republican. I probably shouldn't be, but I am a registered Republican. I have been for a long time. Grew up a Democrat. I have been a registered Democrat way, way, way back in the day. There are reasons for that. But I wanted to mention, we talked about culture last time, and over in Nevada, Nevada, we had a winner of a beauty pageant.
Hey, are you really getting what you want from a...
Whoa, I don't know what that was. Anyway, we had a winner of a beauty pageant that goes on to compete against the other 49 states. And it was I'm not even sure how to call it. It's a trans woman. It's a transgender. Anyway, a guy won the beauty pageant. And of course, they're all congratulating themselves over there, and lots of woke people are congratulating themselves that we finally had a guy not just beat girls in a race or in a wrestling match, or what. We have a guy now who is winning beauty contests. God, how much makeup did that take? But there's a lot of congratulating going on in our country that a man has now won a historically female beauty contest. Ridiculous never seems to end. It never seems to bottom out in this country. It's just going to continue forward. They're pushing, anything they can do, anything the leftists can do to tear down this country in every way that it can, to make us into the great idiocracy that was predicted by a movie, actually more of a documentary about 15, 20 years ago. In Pella, Iowa, and if you don't know, I'm here in Iowa, the Hawkeye state. In Pella, Iowa, there was a grown woman walking around a public swimming pool, and Pella is an incredibly conservative area, walking around a swimming pool topless. You know, in public swimming pools, you got a lot of kids there. I mean, if I saw a woman walking by, I've been on vacation where English girls just take off their shirts in a second. As soon as they get on the beach or whatever, they're taking their shirts off. I could care less. Russian women, in particular, they just like to get their clothes off. I'm kidding. No, am I kidding? I don't know. Anyway, in Pella, Iowa, a gal's walking around without a shirt on because she identifies as a guy. Again, it's just about breaking down the culture, breaking down. You know, sometimes barriers need to be broke down. And sometimes they don't. Sometimes they're there for a reason. And I don't want adults walking around naked. Or, you know what? I guess the guys will just have to put their shirts on. I guess that's what it's coming down to. We're just going to get loony. We're going to let the lunatics take over, and guys will just have to put their shirts on. Anyway, that's in Iowa. You know, Iowa, my state, where we have at some local libraries in smaller towns even. The storybook story reading time by transgenders, cross-dressers, whatever, and people take their children to it. Yeah, I don't know what's wrong with me. I know there could be some people out there going, well, what's wrong with that? We need to split. We need this secession pretty bad. The Delta variant of COVID is now spooking the hell out of people, and I'm reading that there's going to be a big push before the school year to get 5 to 11-year-olds now vaccinated. A lot of 12 to 18-year-olds have been vaccinated, but not a majority. But now they're after the 5 to 11-year-olds, and they're going to use these variants. They're going to use COVID to continue to destroy our country, to bankrupt it, to destroy our culture, destroy our sense of community together. They're going to pit us one against another as if that hasn't already been done. COVID's going to continue to be used for that, and you're going to be able to get your shots for free. You can't get free, and I'm not advocating it, you can't get free cancer treatment. You can't get free treatment for AIDS. You can't get, but for COVID, you can get free shots, even though our death rate is pretty much the same year in and year out over the last few years. The debt, and I mentioned it earlier today, and I mentioned it on Tuesday. I'm just going to go over just a little bit of a rehash of the last show. $30 trillion in debt. And most Americans don't even know what $1 trillion is. If you ask them, they'd say, I don't know. It's more than $1 billion? I don't know. It must be a lot of money. Well, it's a lot of money, and it's never going to be paid back, and it's zeroed in on our future in a way that is going to, well, we may not make it that far before we're busted open in this country, before we are at each other's throats entirely, over all this culture stuff, over cultural Marxism and all this nonsense that's going on. But $30 trillion in debt is going to cause a lot of problems. We'd have to go through a whole show on debt to tell you why. But does it sound right to you that our nation would be $30 trillion in debt, that we would owe foreign nations, including China? China, who we actually subsidize in some ways. We subsidize the Chinese in some ways. Not a lot of money. It's all unconstitutional, but we subsidize the Chinese, and yet we owe the Chinese money. That's government for you. And it makes sense to them. They could, somebody from the government or a lefty could come on here and talk to you about it with their talking points and make it sound like it makes sense. Well, it doesn't. In Portland, and if you don't understand now what's going on after I tell you this, then you just are never going to understand. There was a cop shot someone a couple nights ago. And the rioters started to show up. I mean, it was going to be a hoedown for all the woke idiots out there in the city of Portland that are destroying a beautiful city, a beautiful town. And but the rioters went away fairly quickly when the news came out that the cop that did the shooting was black. And the person who was shot is white. Do you think there's an agenda going on in this country? Yes. And again, it's about destroying America. Once they can't find a narrative to divide us, then they go away. And it won't be covered by the mainstream media. They'll just get away with it because they're in on it. I was watching. I'm fascinated now. I am. I'm fascinated with this show called The View. By the way, I turned it on a little late today and found out that Meghan McCain, the daughter of the former Senator John McCain, he's former because he died. No, I'm fine here. I'm fine. Thanks, Joe. She's leaving. I'm just broken up. The 2 or 3 times now I've seen the show, I can tell you, she's supposed to be the conservative on the show. She is a useful idiot. She is a 100% useful idiot. But she's gone, so I won't focus on her. They were talking about eventually in the show, once they got through, I guess they really hate each other on the show, but after they got through talking about how much they care about each other, you know, all that phony crap, they were talking about the Family Leave Act, how I guess once you've had a baby, aren't we pro-family in this country? Once you've had a baby, you can take a year off of work and get paid. I think even if you're the guy, well, hell, they're probably confused. They may even think guys have babies now. But this is what the liberals do. This is what the leftists do. They make you feel like, oh yeah, that's a good idea. We should force companies to do that. Well, maybe companies would do something like that if we didn't take their money away from them. They would have more money. They would have more resources to offer benefits. That would become a point of competition between companies. That's how that works. And but of course, we've come to the point where nobody questions the government telling private businesses how long they have to let somebody off when a baby has been born to a couple. That sounds like common sense to these people. They point out other nations that do this, and it's true. But other nations that do things like this are much smaller than the United States of America. They're completely different nations. So when it comes to something like this, what I want to point out to to any of you listening out there, that we are a country based on freedom. and competition and self-reliance, self-determination. And we don't use government, well, we do, but we're not supposed to use government to coerce people to act certain ways, only against them acting in ways that hurt other people. So in our system of government, we're not supposed to be top-down at all, which is why we're no longer America. We are top-down. The government's going to tell us how we're going to live, what we're going to fund, what our policies are going to be within our companies and our homes. And the thing that we forget is that states can do this. A lot of states are the size of other nations, and states are supposed to be really their own nation, their own sovereign selves, their own sovereign state. I kind of got redundant there, but and so if a state wants to force a business to do that, then I think they can. I don't think it's a good idea. I don't think it's a good idea to force businesses to do much of anything except to be in business. But and then what you'll have the pushback from people to say, well, if some states do it and other states don't, businesses will move to the states where they're not forced into giving a certain amount of leave. Yep, that's the way America's supposed to work. Yep. And in the end, it'll all flush out, and it'll be way better than the federal government making everybody do the same thing by force of unconstitutional government. I have I mentioned the last show. I have somebody very special back in my life, and she and her boyfriend were watching the show on Tuesday, and which I really appreciate. Washington State, from this beautiful property where they are far away from Seattle, far enough away from Seattle they don't have to deal with that nonsense, and they are living in like heaven on earth. But a couple things that she was concerned about that I said was about policing in America. She had a terrible incident with some police in a small town in the Sierra Nevadas. And to that, everywhere around the country, you're going to get a different level of policing and competence, and from one from police officer to the next, you're going to find that there's no uniformity in their actions. Everybody is different. But the thing that I wanted to bring up, because I do think we need police. Without police, the murder rates go up. We're experiencing it right now. Assaults, rapes, all these things start skyrocketing. So the police are a deterrent, and we want highly trained police. We want intelligent people joining the police. I believe that police and teachers should be the highest paid civil servants in our society. We want to attract the best and the brightest to be cops and teachers. The stick and the what do you call it? For the police, the stick in our society that keeps people a little bit wary of doing wrong things. But the problem to me, and it always has been, and this will piss off any officer that would listen to this today. And I remember speaking poorly about unions when I was a kid, private unions, and my dad wanted to knock my head off because he was a union guy. And union people, they tend to stick together. They tend to look upon their union favorably, and they don't want people knocking it. But I'm against public unions, and I'm against police and teachers unions. And when you have unions like this, and remember, unions are the core of socialism. They are trade unions are we're the launching pad for the proletariat to take over the means of production. Under the Karl Marx philosophy. The problem is the unions, and when you are not doing your job well, because most cops will tell you individually that they don't want bad cops on the job. but the union doesn't seem to have too big a problem with it. They are charged, the union is charged with protecting. I mean, if a cop does something that's so egregious, it is an obvious situation where this person's going to lose their job. That happens, but there's a lot of people in all types of businesses, not just the police forces, that are not good at their job. But when you're protected by a union, a union whose dues basically come from the taxpayers, then you find that mediocre is the general what. Sometimes I have a moment where I can't think of the exact word. You just get a lot of mediocrity. How's that?
You didn't take your vitamin.
I did not take my B vitamins before the show. I do need them. But mediocrity is generally what you get. The best and the brightest don't want to work somewhere where it's like, no matter how smart you are, no matter how punctual you are, no matter how good you are at your job, you can only get a raise by virtue of what the union has negotiated for you, and they negotiated generally over how long you've been there. That's no way to attract the best and the brightest to something, and of course these unions. There's my B vitamins. These unions, they protect employees that aren't very good, and until we get rid of public unions in this country,
try not to smack too much though.
We have union representation for government bureaucrats, police, teachers. They need to go. I don't know that can happen without some type of revolution in this country. Facebook's going to be over me now. But they are a hindrance to civil society, to the best police work, to the best representation in our schools by teachers. The unions need to be defeated. If you're a free American and you want to join a private union because you think that's the best route to go, I'm all for you. Do what you want. Knock yourself out. Be a union guy. But in the public sector, there should not be unions. So anybody out there that's a public sector union employee, you can be as mad at me as you want. But I think if you're good at your job, you should probably be making more money. Well, they've negotiated some big contracts and some hefty pensions and retiring early for a lot of government employees. But I'm against public unions 100%. It is bad for our country. Public unions should never have been allowed to represent anybody in government. So the second item there was immigration, and this thought that just because people don't have the correct papers or come over our border looking for work, they're not here to hurt anybody. What is wrong with them being here? You know what? In the big picture, there is plenty of space here. There is. We need more people in our small towns. It'd be great to have more consumers here in this country, more producers. I don't care what color you are. I don't care what country you came from. I don't care what your religion is, as long as you keep it to yourself and you don't violate our constitutional laws. I don't care. But there has to be some rules as to who's going to come here. And we just recently had somebody, and I can't remember who it was, in the government of Panama saying there are terrorists that are mixing in with people coming across our border. Actual terrorists. And we know that. Donald Trump mentioned MS-13 gang members and called them animals. And then, of course, the media took that and said, well, Donald Trump just called brown people essentially animals, which he did not do. He called members of MS-13 animals. But I dream of a day where borders are unnecessary. I think it would be great. It is the libertarian dream. But until we get rid of our social safety system, our safety net that attracts people here just to live off the taxpayers, and that's what so many are doing. Millions are doing that. Until we get rid of these unconstitutional federal safety nets, until we can adjudicate these people as to whether or not they should actually, if they deserve to be here, if they want to be an American, if they are criminals, we don't want them here. We have to have a system of immigration. We have to have some rules, and because the world is an ugly place sometimes, and we want people coming here who are going to add to the greatness that we used to have. We are a nation of immigrants, that's for sure. I want immigration. Most people that are conservative, I don't even know anybody that says different. We are all for immigration. We want people coming here, but they have to be vetted. We have to know who they are. Without that, it's a breakdown of your country. It is a breakdown of civil society. And it's sad because I know there's millions of good people south of our border that mean no harm to anyone, and they want a better life for their children. I want them here. If they are under threat of death, they're living in just horrible poverty, and they have something to add to our country, which many of them would add to our country. I'm all for them coming here. But really what we have to do is encourage businesses to start opening up in the Mexicos and the Nicaraguas and the Guatemalas and the El Salvadors. And we're going to talk about that a little later. In fact, not long from now, we're going to get into that. So that's my answer on police and immigration. And to me, I'm just trying to be I'm just trying to utilize common sense. There's nothing to any situation. There never will be. 100% of everyone will never be happy. But common sense, if we actually still employed common sense in this country, I think that we would understand that public sector unions are a negative in our society, and that immigration at this point in our history has to be something that is controlled. We have to know who's coming to America. We want to promote people coming here. We want to be a nation of acceptance and love and peace and harmony, and hardworking people that have a chance better than anywhere else in the world for rising up to make something more of themselves than they could where they're from. And by the way, you can't find other nations in the world where many people are able to do that. People still want to come to America because most of the rest of the world will lock you out, and they have good reason to do so. But it's sad because there is so much pain and poverty in the world, but there are ways to fix it, and it's government that gets in the way. Anyway, so I want to just mention a little bit before we get into Democrats and Republicans. I promised to talk about Republicans today, about the so-called war on drugs. We will do a show on the war on drugs. To me, the war on drugs has been a dagger in the heart of our society. I don't like the thought of people doing drugs that hurt them, drugs that sometimes kill them, although most of those drugs are legal drugs. We have to come to some agreement in this country that the war on drugs.
Did you say those are legal or illegal?
Which?
You said some of the drugs that are killing people.
A lot of the drugs killing people are legal drugs. They are what's being prescribed for you.
Okay, just wanted to clarify. Thank you.
Yeah. So until we come to some agreement on this this ridiculous war on drugs, it's going to be hard to fix our urban areas. It's going to be hard to find hope in these urban jungles, the same as it was hard to find hope back when alcohol was prohibited. So anyway, we are, this is the last show before 4th of July. I don't want to talk on till 10 o'clock tonight. I think I'll get a cold beer. Well, I got a few of those last night. In fact, I think I was a little bit inebriated, but I wasn't driving. And it was a beautiful night here in Iowa, here in the heartland in Des Moines, Iowa. And it sometimes just feels kind of good to clear out a few cobwebs. But I'm not gonna have more than one or two tonight. We have a phone line. We have what?
We have a phone line, just so everybody knows it is.
Oh, yeah, 515-630-6262.
We're hoping to get a call tonight. At least one. Come on, everybody.
Well, we have people listening, but that's okay. If people just want me to talk on and on and on, I can do that. Some nights I'm better at it than other nights, but it is what it is. And
I also have that video queued.
I think we'll continue to grow the show to the point where we will have people calling in. I think more people would call in if we could get a few leftists to call in and shout me down and call me names and tell me how I'm lost and that totalitarianism is good for us, which is what Democrats represent. Democrats represent is pretty clear anymore. They've always been the socialists. Before the last few years, the Democrat Party is about socialism. It is about soft socialism, fascism, communism, a mix of all of that. It is about control. It is about making our decisions for us. It is about top-down government. It is an anti-constitutional party entirely. The Democrats are clearly for a massive government that has many Americans on the take on some type of welfare because we are incapable of feeding ourselves because America is such an unfair country in their minds. We are the
Republicans are angels, though, right?
No, that's what we're going to get to. The Democrats are for the nanny state. They are cradle to grave care. The Democrats are for these groups that are there. There's been very little prosecution of people that have been involved in these riots without their masks. By the way, again, it came out another study. These are not partisan studies that are coming, but you're not going to hear about these studies because the media doesn't want you to. Masks don't work. They don't work. So, and if they did, you should have been wearing them before the COVID situation.
And there's also medical evidence of rashes and different staph infections or infections happening.
And black mold on your lungs.
Especially on the kids.
Yeah. So the Democrats are for a nanny state, which is, of course, anathema to everything that is American, the self-reliant American, the America where you don't steal from one to give to another. And these Democrats represent these large cities with the riots, the looting, the defunding of the cops. The Democrats are the party of the teachers' unions. 90% plus of teachers vote Democrat. Union dues, which are which start the foundation of a teacher's salary, which part of goes to union dues, is public money. Yet it goes to one political party, generally, by far and away, the Democrat Party. The Democrats are the party of Antifa, BLM, both anti-American, both anti-family, both organizations that clearly are interested in aggressively tearing down this country. That's what they're paid to do. They have professionals in these groups, and they're paid to incite youths to go out and spray statues, tear down statues, block streets, have a riot if they can find some narrative that works for them. They don't care about the people. Everything is with these people. The end justifies the means. That's what you can see that in what happened in Portland with the black police officer who shot a white guy. Well, that doesn't fit their narrative, so they've moved on very quickly because they can't use that to the end they're trying to get to, which is, again, the destruction of America. That's a big order, the destruction of America. But that is exactly what they're doing, and they've been doing it for a long time. And under the Biden administration, ran by Obama, Soros, and whoever else, they're trying to finalize our destruction, systemic destruction of America. The Democrats are the party of just open borders. Come on in. And we see the death and destruction that is creating on our borders. And in fact, they're more and more, they're finding people that are being massacred along our border, decapitated, more children than ever, raped, assaulted. But that's the end justifies the means. They just want to fill up our country with people that'll get on that'll take advantage of our welfare system and vote Democrat to keep that money coming into their lives, into their homes. The Democrats are the party of high taxes and regulations. They're too concerned that we're not going to behave properly out here. We won't do the right things, so you got to tax the hell out of us, and you got to regulate us. We're gonna infringe on your freedoms because government knows best. And the Democrats are the party of globalism. The Democrats are the party of the United Nations and the Paris Treaty and all these other organizations that pick away at our sovereignty, that take away from our wealth by virtue of taxing us for these organizations and by virtue of the rules they try to implement around the world that hurt us as individuals, and we have no say about it. Maybe some of these things we would actually be for, but we have no say, and that is anti-American. That should never happen. Our representatives should never allow that to happen. So anyway, the Democrat Party is a party that, the Democrats have no problem. You see it. They think the Republicans are the anti-constitutional party, and I guess they're the constitutional party. They can make it sound any way they want. They're very good at it. But the Democrats infringe on our Constitution every single day. They have been for years, to the point where we almost don't have a Constitution. So what about those Republicans? What about those Republicans? I was talking to a Republican Monday evening. Good man. I'm going to talk to him again. Hope to have him on the show. And the Republicans are supposed to be the party of small government and the Constitution. Well, they're not. They are not. Here in this state, we have a guy, he's possibly going to run, I think, for a 6th term in the United States Senate. And if you bring up his name in a pejorative way, you will anger a lot of Iowans. He's their guy. They voted for him for years. Chuck's a good man. Good man. And I'm talking about Chuck Grassley. And there's all kinds of Chuck Grassleys that have been in our United States Senate over the years, been there a long time, Republicans, and they invariably, you'll hear about with Chuck. It's he fights against the cost of toilet seats in the military, even though toilet seats still cost a lot when the military buys them. They may not cost as much as they used to. I'm not sure of that, but that's how he's made his living. That's his image. As a good old boy, just a country bumpkin, going to Washington to fight the good fight, to stand for apple pie, Chevrolet, America, small government, responsible government, self-determination, all those Republican virtues, all those so-called conservative virtues. I say so-called conservative because, you know, there's this, in the Republican Party, there's these what we call rhinos, Republican in name only. They're moderates. They're willing to work across the aisle. They're willing to compromise. They're willing to work with the Democrats. They're very proud of it. Well, most conservatives are rhinos, in my opinion. They are very different. In fact, most of the time when they really come out and are bold and they sound like they're really standing up for the Constitution of America, it's because they can't get the votes to actually make something happen. They do this when they're in the minority. They're very brave when they're in the minority. You go, man, if they could only gain power.
Mark, did you want to get into this video clip? I forgot to ask you. I had it up on the monitor.
In a couple seconds.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know if it pertained to Republicans.
Yeah, it does.
Okay.
It does.
Okay.
But the Republicans, they generally speak their minds. They seem very, very bold and American when they're in, oh boy, put us in power and we'll get things done. We'll turn this thing around. But Republicans have been in power. In fact, the first 2 years of the Trump presidency, the Republicans controlled the Congress and the obviously the executive branch. We still have the same problems. We still have the same problems, and this happens at the state level as well as the national level. Because, and I'm going to say it because that's what I do. Because Republicans are cowards. Because Republicans, when it comes right down to it, are wishy-washy politicians that just want to maintain their power. A lot of times they maintain their power by scare tactics. Well, if you don't vote for me, look what you could really have. They're really bad. I may suck, but oh my God, look at the other side. And of course, they get elected sometimes with that kind of. Essentially, it's their slogan. Yeah, I may not be worth a shit, but look at the other guy. So it's like you've heard, the lesser of two evils is killing our country, and the Republicans are the lesser of two evils. Let's take the issue of abortion. You almost can't be a part of the Republican Party and be pro-abortion. But yet, when the Republicans are in power, nothing's done on abortion. No, they'll blame the Supreme Court. Only Congress can make law. Only Congress can make law. That's in the Constitution. Yet, Republicans, they do nothing. They talk about it big until they're elected. That's what they do. And that's why a lot of people don't vote. That's why a lot of people on the conservative right don't vote. They know it doesn't make a difference. Because even if they get the majority, they're cowards. Okay, Joe, go ahead and play that. I want to show you somebody here who's not a coward. There's one thing she says I don't like, and I'm going to bring it up. But her name is I think Lauren Boebert. She's a representative from Colorado, and she speaks her mind. And she's in another woman who's willing to stand up and speak straight, unlike some of these cowardly men who just had a great shot at winning the next election. So let's listen to somebody who is trying hard to be a real American, a great American.
Thank you so much, Congressman Cawthorn. I am so excited for your leadership on this issue tonight. Thank you for making time to address the American people. Mr. Speaker, there are three people who come to mind when I think of people who cannot even give their money away. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, do you remember when her donations were returned to her by members of Congress because they don't want to be associated? Harvey Weinstein and Joe Biden. Those three cannot even give money away. In fact, by July 3rd, 25 states across America will have rejected President Biden's federal unemployment benefit bonuses. I meet with organizations every day that request funds for worthwhile endeavors. Sadly, America is $28 trillion in debt and can't afford to spend the money on many of these worthy causes. But leave it to Joe Biden to try to spend money in a way that actually hurts our economy and is rejected by Republican and Democrat governors across our entire country. That's a special level of basement incompetency. We've got 9.3 million unfilled jobs, and I hear it back home. Businesses can't get people back to work because they are making more to sit at home on the couch. They would rather watch Dave Portnoy eat a slice of pizza. But then again, maybe that's not his viewers. Maybe it's more of the folks sitting back watching Joy Behar and The View cackle and demonize our country and all of our worthwhile efforts to restore dignity in this nation. The Biden regime is literally incentivizing laziness. But then again, they set that example on a regular basis, calling it quits in the middle of the day. When's the last time the president hasn't called a lid before his afternoon snack? In my home state of Colorado, many corporations are offering bonuses that small businesses can't afford. We're seeing massive signing bonuses from $10,000 to $30,000 for utility and HVAC workers, and that's simply unsustainable. According to the Colorado Restaurant Association, more than 90% of restaurants are having issues finding workers. I'm one of them. I've had employees say, I cannot work more than 2 days a week. I cannot exceed 12 hours of work because it will cut in to my benefits. That is un-American. Joe Biden is quickly becoming the greatest threat to small businesses since Fauci's fraud. While small businesses across my district, across America, are struggling to find workers, struggling to stay open, Joe Biden is struggling to stay awake. I'm calling on this administration to end these excessive federal COVID payouts and stop de-incentivizing work. Madison Cawthorn, Congressman, thank you for your leadership on this issue. And Mr. Speaker, I yield.
This is a Republican that speaks her mind and doesn't back down, and that's why they hate her. When I say hey, the media hates her. A lot of Republicans, the Democrat Party, they hate her. They want her out. They want her off committees because she's going to speak the truth. Now, where are the rest of the Republicans? Cowering. Yep, that's what you're doing. You're cowering. You're not making anybody squeal. You're watching the country go to the shitter. You're watching the Constitution shredded every day, which is what you take an oath to defend. There's one thing I want to bring up there that she said that I disagree with, and unfortunately, this has just become a part of our government. This idea that if we don't spend money on certain things that we shouldn't be spending money on, there's other worthy causes. There's not, or even if it is a worthy cause, it's not for our federal government to spend money on. Just because something's a worthy cause, that doesn't mean the government should be the only thing the federal government should spend money on are things that are specifically enumerated in the Constitution. We have nobody running on that platform. And I will maintain that is the number one reason that America is divided, massively in debt, and in trouble, and vulnerable to Chinese hegemony. So anyway, I want to go down a few issues that Republicans talk about. Obamacare. Republicans were going to get rid of Obamacare. Well, they had the majority. Obamacare is just taking our semi-socialized medicine and making it more socialized than ever, which is bad for everyone. And they couldn't do it. They couldn't do it. They wouldn't do it. Social Security and Medicare. If you know anything about our Constitution, you know that these are not constitutional programs. Now, it doesn't mean I'm against people having medical care. It doesn't mean I'm against people having retirement funds. But that's a whole nother issue. I mean, if there had never been Social Security and Medicare, federalized Social Security and Medicare, do you think that we would be worse off today? That other things wouldn't have sprung up in place, including people's understanding that they were going to have to take care of their own retirement and health care? Do you think states wouldn't have stepped up? Do you think doctors and hospitals would charge everybody the same? Or do you think a lot of them would have a heart and a little common sense and have different levels of what they charge or spread out how much they charge? And in fact, they wouldn't have to charge as much as they do if they weren't overregulated and they weren't turned into an arm of the federal government. People forget the alternatives could be so much better when they say, well, aren't you happy you have Social Security? I'm like, no, I'm not. No, I'm not. It was theft. It's always going to be theft. And being mandated to do anything in this country is unconstitutional. Republicans don't fight for that. Now, you might say, well, Social Security, Medicare, you can't touch them. Well, you can. You can lead. I'll tell you how you touch them. You take all the money that's supposed to be in those funds and you give that money back to people, and you let us figure it out back here in the States. That's how you do it. Real simple. Free market medicine will beat the hell out of government medicine any day. But it always makes people, statists, Republicans, not just Democrats, Republicans, feel like they're fighting for us. They're taking care of us when they're actually driving up costs and they're hurting us. Donald Trump said he was going to build a wall on the border. That doesn't mean we want to stop people from coming in. We want hardworking people coming in. A lot of people that come to America in the right way, and some of them in the wrong way. They believe in America more than a lot of Americans do. They really do. They believe in hard work and family and self-discipline. Most of them aren't criminals. But we can't just have anybody come in that just feels like it for a lot of reasons. Donald Trump was building a wall, and Republicans fought him on it. That wall should have been built in the first 2 years of that administration. If you want an example of how much a wall can help a country, look at Hungary. They built a wall. It's a really effective wall. And they're still letting people in. They're just letting people in that they believe will be positive for the nation of Hungary. State sovereignty. Yep, we're top down. We are a national welfare state. The Republicans talk small government, small government, small government, low taxes, less regulations, yet we still have high taxes. Even under the Trump tax cuts, in my opinion, those are high taxes. I want money staying with private citizens and private businesses, our communities, our local governments. I don't want it going to the federal government to do so much that is not covered in the Constitution. This is a show about the Constitution and how not adhering to it is destroying our nation. We have a 10th Amendment. And if you don't know what the 10th Amendment is, and a couple of these things I talked about on Tuesday, the 10th Amendment says clearly, specifically, anything not given as a responsibility to the federal government is left to the states and to the people. The states wouldn't have had it any other way. They didn't want to give up their sovereignty, their authority to the federal government. They hired the federal government to make sure some rules were followed regarding interstate commerce, that treason would be prosecuted no matter where it was at by the federal government. But basically, the federal government was hired to take care of external matters, war, foreign relations. That's what the federal government, the states couldn't do that on their own or individually. They wanted a central government to handle those things. Makes sense, doesn't it? Nope. Federal government, we've all become dependent on it. Yet there is that 10th Amendment. Part of the original Bill of Rights, the first 10 amendments, that specifically says that anything not specifically given to the federal government is left for the states and the people. When have you heard a Republican run on that? Besides never. Debt. The Republicans, oh my God, for years, the debt. Well, the debt's ballooning under Republicans. We can blame whoever we want. But the Republicans are doing nothing about the debt. I don't even think they talk about it anymore because they know how foolish they sound. They're afraid to talk about some of these things. They want to go along to get along. There's a gentleman, a person who loves this country with all his heart, named Steve McCoy, and I talked about him on one other show, who's made speeches and had classes all over the state trying to teach legislators in particular, or key people, about nullification because of what he sees. And he tried to explain to these people that life is short. Don't worry about losing an election. Don't worry about what the local media is going to say. Don't worry about what your neighbor's going to say. Do the right thing. In the end, we're all just dust. Why not do the right thing? And I looked at the legislators he was talking to at the meeting I was at, and I knew there's no way. Cowards. Absolute cowards. Cowards populate the hell out of the Republican Party. They're scared out of their minds to stand up for America. Taxes. This country pays trillions in taxes for all kinds of departments and agencies that are nowhere found in our Constitution. Trillions in taxes. The United Nations steals our sovereignty. When have you heard a Republican go after the United Nations and call for its abolishment, call for it to be removed from our land? I'm not aware of it. There might be one or two out there that do. But you don't hear that from Republicans. Even if you think the United Nations is a good idea. Let's unite the nations. How can that be a bad thing? Well, because it's corrupt and it's communistic. That's why. And a great and moral America, where the people, the citizens of this country, and the businesses we work for, if we were allowed to keep our own money, we will do a much better job of helping other people around the world. Far more efficient, far less corruption. Yeah, Joe?
Camera.
You're pointing?
Just the camera.
Okay.
Yep. Those are your people.
The Second Amendment shall not be infringed, yet it's infringed. Republicans don't stand up for it. They try to hold back the onslaught of laws infringing on our Second Amendment. And what people don't realize is that guns save far more lives. Well, guns don't save lives, and guns don't take lives. People save lives, and people take lives. But the use of a gun, and the statistics are out there, and I've given them on this show before. The threat of the use of a gun to defend private property, people having guns with them when they go out, save thousands of lives every year. You don't hear that from Republicans. You don't hear any Republican get up in the well at the House or the Senate and tell the truth to the American people and tell it loud and tell it strong. It doesn't happen. Campaign finance. The financing of campaigns is full of corruption. I don't hear any Republicans talking about it. Chuck Grassley, if he runs again at, age 87 here, he'll amass a war chest of, I don't know, $7, $8, $10 million, probably a hell of a lot more than that. Anything to keep that seat. It's corrupt. A seat that has become powerful because we've allowed everything to be federalized in this country, again, regardless of our Constitution. Something the Republicans are supposed to hold near and dear, and they don't. China. What are Republicans doing about China? China is ambitious. You know, our greatest threat for a long time was the Soviet Union. But the only reason the Soviet Union was a threat was because it had nuclear weapons, because they had a big military. Their economy stunk. But China's strong economically. China learned from the mistakes. China learned that you can't be fully communist. You have to allow a little free enterprise to create wealth so that you can dominate the world. And that is their design. To replace the United States of America. So that the greatest power in the world is totalitarian. Which, hell, we're halfway there anyway. China. We had a president that was trying to do something about China. China. I can't say it like he does. And that's okay. It kind of drove me nuts the way you said China. Donald Trump's plan on China was, one, to bring back 1 million jobs, manufacturing jobs. And by the way, the Biden administration is pretty much keeping the Trump administration's tariffs and stance on China, even though they called him a xenophobe and put him down, and they're maintaining the tariffs. Hypocrites. Anyway, bring back 1 million manufacturing jobs. Tax credits for companies that bring back jobs. I think those tax credits should also be used to bring back jobs almost anywhere in the Western Hemisphere, and in particular in Central America, so that people in these poor countries to our south have a chance for a better life, a good job. That's one of the main problems down there. There's a lot of problems. Political. No nation started out like America. They have a lot of political problems. Authoritarian governments. Militaries lined up with the government that keep the people down. Don't allow free enterprise, freedom. Donald Trump was for tax credits for companies that bring back, in particular, manufacturing jobs. Allow 100% expensing of deductions for essential industries like pharmaceuticals and robotics. China owns us. They're making the majority of our pharmaceuticals that so many Americans have come to depend on, whether for good reason or not. We become dependent on the pharmaceutical industry. Well, China manufactures the vast majority of our pharmaceuticals. Donald Trump was trying to reverse that. No federal contracts for companies who outsource to China. And lastly, to hold China accountable for this virus that, by the way, Fauci lied about, and there's been more proof unearthed that he knew damn good and well he was lying about where the virus came from, and the American taxpayer financing gain-of-function research. And the reason I bring up China like this, it's kind of like the border wall. Republicans fought him on it. Now, Donald Trump was for using the federal government in unconstitutional ways. I don't think he even thought about it. He did look at the Constitution. I think he understands the Constitution basically, but he's also a pragmatist and was still offering programs, tax money to pay for things that really the government shouldn't be involved in, kind of like Representative Boebert was doing or advocating for. But Republicans did not support the president strongly enough on China. Are they bought and paid for by China? They're scared of the press that China partially owns? Does the Chinese government or the CIA working with the Chinese government or with our own, do they have pictures of these politicians? My point is, and a lot of you out there know this, the Republicans are cowards. By and large, they are cowards. And again, the only time they step up and sound strong, they sound of pro-America, America first, is when they know they aren't in the majority and they don't have the votes to do what they say they are for. That's what they do. Gutless. Absolutely gutless, so many. There's millions of Americans that want to call you out on it. They're still left to vote Republican if they're going to vote. But that's a big reason Donald Trump won easily in the primaries 5 years ago, 6 years ago. Because so many millions of Americans know most of you are gutless. Absolutely gutless. You do not run on protecting our natural rights. What you run on is the continued corruption of the United States of America, just not as much as the Democrats. You are a bigger problem because you give comfort to too many people in this country thinking something's being done. Somehow we're fighting this lunacy. You're not fighting it. You're acquiescing to it. You are acquiescing to the lunacy. If you weren't, because things aren't good, we've listed a lot of reasons why they're not good, why America is going in the wrong direction, why we're losing our liberties, which was nakedly on display during this this time of COVID, which will never end. It's Republicans that are letting us down. I wish the libertarians could get it together and either become a strong party and build something real, or get involved in the Republican Party and convince people of a better direction, which I don't think you can do. You could, but you're going to have to employ a little more common sense versus philosophy and take over the Republican Party. Because essentially we're set up to be a two-party system. And there are reasons that that's not a bad thing. It's the Republicans that let us down. It's the Republicans that are weak. That's my point tonight as we get ready for a big celebration in our country, a country that I love right to its core, a country that I wish I had joined the armed forces. I was in the Army recruitment office. Something else wasn't working out in my life. I thought, maybe I should go to the Army. And a good friend and a dear friend, one of my best friends, talked me out of it. And I don't know why I let him do that, but I was easily influenced. I was 18. I wasn't sure what I was going to do, but boy, do I regret it. If I knew I would have gone into some conflict and I would have died, I still believe I regret it. We all die one day, and that's the next point that I'm going to make to finish this show here on our most patriotic weekend. We are missing God in our country. I've had my ups and downs with God over the years, but I've become more spiritual than I ever have been. You know, I hear that maybe what our universe is controlled by, and you could, I believe you could witness this in watching the Matrix movies, which are incredible movies, that over the billions of years, artificial intelligence is what's actually controlling our universe. I don't know. It's possible. It doesn't actually sound far-fetched to me at all. Or perhaps somehow magically life appeared over billions of years. Supernovas blowing up, atoms sprayed all over the place, muons everywhere. And just randomly, eventually, life on this earth. I don't know. Maybe. It could be. I don't know. And then there's God. And even with God, a spiritual being, obviously a power we cannot even imagine. You can't. No one can. If there is a creator, a spiritual force that can create life on earth through a 14-year-old, I think she was 14, a virgin named Mary, that can be resurrected here on earth, be his son and himself, and rise from the dead. This is a force that we can't really understand. It comes down to faith. But I believe in God. I believe that we are all a miracle and that somehow we are cared for here on this earth. But whether there is or there isn't, either way, eventually we are all dust. We only get a short time here. So while we're here, why don't we just do the right thing? Like my friend Steve McCoy talked about at his meetings with legislators and some key people around the state. Why not do the right thing? Why not stand for real America? So that by the time you get to the end of your life and you are measured and you are weighed, you are judged, regardless of money or power that you ever held, you did the right thing while you were here. And in America, that means 100% support of our Constitution and our Bill of Rights and what made America great in the first place. So as we go into this 4th of July weekend, enjoy your cold ones, enjoy the grilling, enjoy the carnivals. But if I can reach 6 people with this idea that you are here to do good things, you are here to be a caring person, a moral and righteous person. It doesn't matter how much money you have when you die. It doesn't matter how much power. It matters what you do within your communities and even in this world. And we can do great things. We can quit destroying other cultures. We can quit killing people overseas. We can help the poor and the indigent, no matter what their color and what country they're living in, if we will adhere to our Constitution and do the right things while we're here and not worry about the next damn election. Not worrying about your power. Because in the end, we're all gone one day anyway. So just do the right thing. with that, I do hope you have a great weekend. My grandkids are coming home tonight. They're the 3 that didn't go on vacation with their parents. I've been left to watch the 17-year-old. That's been a blast. Haven't been to bed before 4 o'clock in 5 nights now. So I'm happy that they'll be back this evening. I love my grandkids, as most grandparents do. So I'm going to have a great weekend just by that alone. So have a great night, great weekend. Peace to everyone. It's a rough day.